Right? So, hello, welcome to the second channel. I've not uploaded a normal video to this yet. Uh, so we are in my Minecraft survival world, and I'm just gonna kind of, it's gonna be kind of a slower upload. I'm just gonna kind of go like train of thought. We're gonna go largely uncut with this one. Partly because I don't want to edit it. I just want to kind of, unload a little bit. And so I don't know how long this is gonna be. Uh, I recently watched. Well, okay, so here's my thought, right? I just kind of wanted to talk about a movie that I've watched, right? And I for a while wanted to use the second channel to just kind of like unload my thoughts. So we're gonna try something out. And I can't really do this on the main channel because I'm a bit worried about like staying favorable in the algorithm and all that. And so this is just gonna be, you know, some second screen content. Just kind of listen through. Not a whole lot interesting going on screen, and I'm not gonna be trying to like upkeep retention. It's just kind of something you can throw on the background. Anyways, what I did want to talk about was that the other night I watched the Chainsaw Man movie. Right? Such a really odd choice for a start. Oh, there's okay. And I am doing this while I'm recording the actual footage. So forgive me if there's weird like pauses and breaks. Actually, can we get a music disc real quick? Nope, we can't. uh, but I watched the Chainsaw Man movie the other night, which is kind of a really weird one to start this with, I feel. But there was a lot. I'm gonna start by saying like my letterbox review is 5 stars, right? Uh, but there was a lot to it, a lot to unpack, and a lot that I really liked about it. And right here, I've got the pit, which is a project I started that I said I was only going to work on streams. I am yet to even acknowledge its existence on the main channel. And if you mention anything about it in the comments on the main channel, your comment's getting hidden because this thing's a secret. I'm keeping this a secret because one day I want to just walk in and say, oh, by the way, guys, I did this. It's a 2x2 chunks. And so we're just going to be kind of chipping away at this. I originally wanted it to just be a stream thing, but working on a stream with no viewers is a bit dulling to the mind. I do realize I can actually turn on my music. I have to record without music. Because I don't want, like, cutting around music. Anyways, I watched the Chainsaw Man movie, and it really hard to kind of start on this. I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd. I thought it was an amazing movie, and I'm a bit disappointed just by the fact that it is Chainsaw Man, because I know the Chainsaw Man fan base. I'm a part of it, and I know what the average person among the Chainsaw Man fan base is like, and I know what the pop culture reception of the whole Reze arc already has been. And it's a bit disappointing to me. Uh, so I'm gonna try to avoid. I don't want to spoil, but oh wait, that music's too loud. Let's get done with that. I don't want to spoil the movie, but it is kind of spoiled in like emotional imaging. And so I'm gonna avoid too specific of details, but if you want to go into it like not knowing anything about it, that's fine. Just don't watch this video. But you've got... It's about Denji, obviously, and Reze. Just if you're like uninvolved, don't care about spoilers. It's about Denji and Reze, and you know, Denji is very manipulated by... easily manipulated. And he falls for this girl who shows interest for him, and she's the first girl to really ever show interest in him. And there's a really beautiful story in there about young love that's kind of what I want to touch on. I've read the manga already, and so I obviously knew what was going to happen. But I found myself, even knowing what was going to happen, just kind of letting myself fall into it. You know, it's like the opening of Hades Town a bit. Like, maybe it will work out this time. You know how it's going to end. You know that it's not a happy movie. But you still let yourself believe that things are going well. And overall, where's the... Sorry, I keep opening this. I want that. But you let yourself kind of believe it. Which is a really magical feeling. It's a feeling that I don't... Like, you don't get it very often. Because the portrayal of the relationship between Denji and Reze is a really, like... I can best describe it as tender thing. You know? It's got all of those quiet moments, and it kind of, as a whole, what a lot of the movie centers around the idea of is kind of like, if you've ever read John Green's Looking for Alaska, there's a scene where the main character and another character who he isn't very interested in have a very intimate scene with, you know, very intimate acts. And then it is immediately contrasted by just kind of like a quiet moment where there's a much stronger emotional connection. And that's a lot of kind of what I'm getting, like what I get whenever I watch that first half of the movie. By the way, the first half is like this beautiful love story, and then the second half is the fight scene. Which, also, you're gonna hear my chair a lot throughout this. I cut it out of videos normally. But it's a really weird thing, because you have like gorgeous animation, these super quiet, tender moments, and then it's contrasted by, again, beautifully animated, but just this flashy, big fight scene. And it's like, I really hope that my microphone actually did mute whenever I did that. It should have. And it's, I don't know, but I wanted to talk about mainly that first half. I've a few of you coming from the main channel may know that I've recently gone through a breakup. I've I've lost a lot throughout this process, right? It was super messy. I didn't want it to go messy, but it did. And this movie kind of made me think of it. My letterbox review starts with reminds me of my love life, because it does. It starts off and it's kind of like the first time that Denji's ever felt seen, you know? And he starts to fall into this girl. And so, like, for me, where that ties in is, like, whenever I got into a relationship, I had decided that, like, I'd kind of settled on, okay, I'm not gonna get into a relationship until, like, college. Right? It's fine. But it comes out of nowhere. And, he spends all this time just kind of, like, not believing it. But then it gets to a point where he has to believe it. And the thing I get stuck on is, because I'm coming back to it again, is the quiet moments that they share, not the ones where they're... Well, I'm not going to say that. There's a portrayal of really mundane moments between them. And a lot of them are played off for laughs, right? Like, they have, like, dumb flirting moments. And it's such an honest portrayal of young love. And, having felt that even after everything I've gone through, it's still the best feeling I've ever experienced. And even by the end, Denji is still kind of in that train of thought, And, it gets to me again because it's kind of like, you watch the movie and you know how it ends. You know it ends in this big fight scene between them, where they're literally destroying a city fighting each other. But you still believe it's going to work out. You still want to. And when I got into a relationship, it's so dumb. I literally said to her, I was like, listen, I don't know if you're going to want to be in a relationship with me. And she was like, no, I do. I know I do. And I was like, okay, well, because she's the one who asks me. But I was still really unsure because I wasn't very confident in myself. And so I was like, okay, well, how about this? We'll have this conversation in a month. And if you've changed your minds, then no hard feelings. And so I was very much not believing that things would work out for a long time. But I still let myself believe. And in letting myself believe that, I did get a really nice experience. Just like letting yourself believe in this movie. You let yourself believe it's going to be something beautiful. And so everything just has such a strong pull on your heart. Especially whenever it doesn't work out, it just makes everything hit harder. And I think there's also something in there about how bitter things can turn. And the communication errors that can occur. And so, this is a little bit more like personal experience. I originally thought that my breakup was on good terms. And I'm recording this in May. Well, actually, it's the last day of May. It's 2 a.m. May 31st. The breakup was in April, and we got together November of 2024. So we were together about a year and a half. But I thought that our breakup had been on good terms. And, Denji doesn't get that. And for him, just like it was for me, it's very sudden. And things turned sour very quickly. I remember that for me, we had these long conversations about it. And everything seemed like good, right? We were like, yeah, we're still gonna be friends. And, maybe we even try again someday. But 3 days after the breakup even, she got with my best friend. And so you can piece together what was really happening. And it turned sour very quickly after that. The same day that I found out, which was a week later, is also the day I found out that rumors were being spread about me doing things that, I did not do. Like, I think the biggest was that I was, verbally abusive, which I would not consider myself a commanding person, commanding presence. Whenever I would go to her house, she would always be the one who had to tell her mom if I was staying for dinner or not because I didn't want to yell downstairs. I have to hype myself up whenever I'm recording because I tend to mumble. I have a bad ear, especially, and so my ear starts to hurt whenever I hear something too loud, and that applies to my own voice. And also, it strains my throat so bad to be loud. And people came to me because they were like, well, that doesn't sound like you. Right, I would describe myself as meek. Meek-spirited. And so, something so blatantly wrong was being said about me. And was being spread with the intent of tarnishing my reputation. Because, people knew that we had a good relationship, and they wouldn't understand unless there was a reason to hate me. And so it kind of, seeing that in the movie, that really stuck with me. Just how sudden the switch was from believing everything is good. Just a few minutes before Reze just kind of starts attacking Denji. She says, she asks him to run away with her. And just the day before our breakup, we were fine, Just 2 days before those two got together, we had a long talk where she told me that maybe even after a week, we reassess where we are. And, by that point, plans had pretty obviously already been in motion. And this just idea that somebody who you spend all this time getting to know, and just, I don't want to say learning to love because you're already in love with them, but you learn who they are. When you fall for somebody and when you get into a relationship, you kind of become parts of each other. And so just after that, and then you have your fight, which to me kind of is very reminiscent of just things turning sour. Especially because, you've got Reze on the offense, and then she's just trying to stay alive. This was the very end of my senior year of high school. Right before prom. The week before prom is when we broke up. And I was just kind of trying to keep going. Because suddenly, you know, I didn't have anybody with me for prom, but also just, you know, I lost my best friend too. And I lost a lot of friends. A lot of people stopped talking to me because we were both in theater. And you know how theater kids. And so, you know, I kind of relate to Denji when he's trying to stay alive, and it feels like everything around him is trying to kill him. And he can't catch a break for even a second. And he's got just a very small support system. They're a very strong, very small but very dedicated support system behind him. And you know, that's kind of another thing, you know, another theme, I think. Just can't get through things alone. Uh, but then even after the fight, you know, Denji is still talking, still saves Reze. And that's, you know, I can still understand it. And he still asks if she still wants to run away together. And he still gives her a chance with him. Even after all she's done. And for a long while, that's kind of how I felt. And, like, I've forgotten the reasons. You know, a lot of other stuff fell into place that made me understand just how severe things were. Not to get too far into it, but just... I've got OCD. And it just tears me apart. It's a really hard thing to live with, but it was... When spreading rumors, she started using my OCD against me to kind of portray me as this, like, neurotic, insane figure who just... I don't know. But I can still... There's something very human about it. And, you know, in the end, Denji wasn't what she was after. She changed her mind. She didn't want Denji anymore. She just wanted the thing that he brought her closer to. And so, like, I'm not trying to push any kind of agenda here, by the way. I don't know how this is coming off. I'm not trying to say that, like, love is a lie. I'm just trying to say that, you know, for me, this kind of clicked a lot of those buttons. And what I got at that end is that Denji still had people who supported him. Even though it took so much out of them to keep that support. When somebody is right to have in your life, and when somebody is a good friend to you, they're going to stick with you to the end. And if they are going to be bad to you, then you probably don't want them in your life. And you're going to learn a lot from them. You're going to learn more about what's possible in the world. You're going to learn about what you can have when you learn what you can't have. Because I look back at my breakup, right? And I try not to think about the actual breakup and all of, like, the harshness that came out of it. Which, that's impossible. It does still eat at me every day. But I try to primarily think about just what our relationship stood for. And I need to go repair this pickaxe. But in the end, what I get is that a life with that true, honest love and those quiet moments, that's possible. And that's why that beginning sticks with me. You get this just super saturated view of the world through Denji, where, everything's brighter when he's with Reze, and he just starts to unlock this new depth to the world, this new way of seeing life. And he starts to just, in becoming part of somebody else's world, his own expands. And that's kind of what you learn from young love, Which is why I did love the movie so much. I loved that just true and honest portrayal of it. It's my... Yes. I'm gonna get some kelp too. But it's this incredibly honest portrayal. I feel, at least. Not in that it has to crash and burn, but everything that it can be. In the kind of... the way it changes you. The way that your world does become a little brighter. And that those quiet moments where, you're not doing anything special, but those moments become some of the most cherished that you have. I think back at my relationship, and the moments I remember aren't like when we did go to prom last year, or like our big dates. One of the only dates that I remember us having in like vivid detail, other than the ones that we were just kind of being funny, was our first date, which is where we just kind of went to the mall and we walked around Barnes & Noble, and we were just kind of goofy, We spent that day in Barnes & Noble looking for horses. And when you see the way in that movie that Denji's looking at Reze, and the way that his world just opens up afterwards, there's emotions that you just... movies are so good at conveying that words fail. And I consider myself somebody with a very large vocabulary, and with, above average skill of manipulating the English language. It doesn't show on camera because I'm trying to do quick thinking and stuff, but there's something about a movie where you can just pack so much information in and so much emotion. And there's montages in this movie. And montage is, in my... it's one of, like, those... the two big forms of filmmaking. It's a very emotional form of filmmaking. Right? Because there's... I can't go into all the depths of montage and everything. That's completely different. But montage is really powerful at portraying what just normal linear storytelling cannot. And the portrayal of those peaceful moments, those little moments in this movie just filled me with so much emotion that I haven't felt in a long time. And it, in a way, it reminded me of why I'm still going. You know, of why I'm still holding out hope. Of why I'm not giving up. And it's clearly somebody else has felt the same way. And that means that I can feel it again. It's still out there. When I think of... So when you see this movie, there's not a whole lot of, like, super big things that these two do together. Like, there's like two big scenes that are kind of like big outings between them. But other than that, like, all the montages and stuff are just normal days. And whenever I think about my relationship, what I think about are the times that we would go to her house for lunch. For our school lunches, right? Because we get off-campus lunch. Or... I remember a lot of just the look of her face in the dark. You know, not talking or anything. Literally just kind of sitting there, looking at each other. And it's not like an explicit way, just like a, you know, casual way. It's just dark. And it's not those big moments or big conversations. It's just the dark and softness. And you're in it together. You're experiencing these moments with somebody else. And there's a kind of connection there. And just the feeling of having that connection is one of the most special things that a human can experience. And so to see that on a screen, like, it gave me chills. And like I said, I did want to believe that everything would be okay. And like, at the end, I caught myself mourning, even though I saw it coming. Just like the day that our breakup happened, I knew the reason that she wanted to talk to me was to break up with me. But I still went in believing there was a chance. Right? And Fujimoto is so good at conveying these ideas. He deserves a way better fan base than the Chainsaw Man fan base, dude, because it's bad. It's bad out there. It's rough. And I don't know. It's sorry, it's a bit difficult to kind of just... I'm not used to just kind of talking about a movie. I'm used to having somebody else to talk back about. I've been a film student for 4 years, right? My entire high school career I took film classes. And with my teacher, anytime I did see a movie, because I don't see many movies, I would have somebody I could talk to about it. And, you know, I'm not in that community anymore. I graduated. I could still, you know, if he's seen a movie, message him about it, but there's just... Chainsaw Man's a really weird series, man. I first got into it like 2 or 3 weeks, or it wasn't too long after the first season of the anime fully came out. Like it wasn't still on its releases. It was fully out, but I think I don't know. I might have had to wait on an episode or two. But it was the first anime that I'd watched, and it was weird. You know, Chainsaw Man is a very weird series, both in like its concepts, but also there's a bit of like fan service moments. They're kind of uncomfortable, you know. And the movie still had those, which I didn't like. But a lot of it is navigated very tastefully. And I think Fujimoto's really good at that. Like, you know, he's a bit weird. He can be a bit weird. But overall, the story is still put at the center. And for those of you who don't know, Chainsaw Man is about largely the way that male victims of, you know, grooming are very underplayed and underappreciated. Not underappreciated, but not treated with the severity. You know, it's kind of just like, attaboy, are you lucky, man? Which is, Chainsaw Man kind of forms like a social commentary on that. Unfortunately, Fujimoto got the fan base that goes, she bad. Yo. Denji in such a good situation. No. No. And, you know, the overarching theme is about him being groomed. At least for part one. And people talk about how much they have it out for the woman who uses him. And it's disappointing. And so it's disappointing knowing what people are getting out of that. Because there's also a scene in the movie where I never thought that, like, non-sexual nudity would ever be shown, would ever be a sentence that I speak about in regards to Chainsaw Man. You know? And, you know, I read most of the manga at night. So I did kind of, like, glaze over this a little bit. But there's a scene where the two go swimming at night. And they don't, you know, they didn't bring bathing suits. But there's very little emphasis on that fact. And it is largely just about their experience of being together and sharing this experience. Which I would consider pretty tasteful. Like, very tasteful in the way that it was navigated. Because it's something that could have gotten really weird, really uncomfortable. And normally I would, you know, on my Letterboxd review, I would dock half a star for nudity that I like and made me uncomfortable. But I couldn't bring myself to do that, even though there were moments like that in this, because the story that was being told at the end of the day really resonated with me after being separated from the rest of it. And, you know, we shouldn't always just separate our art from the parts of itself, but I don't know. I don't know, man. I think about this movie, and I feel like a broken record, but it's those tender moments. Because I again think back about my relationship, and that's what I miss. It's it's an honest portrayal of young love, and just the brightness that comes into your life, how it comes out of nowhere. It's like the one time that you're not looking for it. It just comes out of the blue. And it changes you. You start to be a happier person. You see the world in a new way. You... Everything else just kind of goes on hold, you know? Everything else fades into the background as this becomes the main focus of your life. And especially whenever it is that first relationship, you realize just how much more there is in this world. And why you're really in it. And what it's all about, you know? It was a sentence by a quote by John Green. I don't remember exactly. But he was talking about young love. And he mentioned, if you want to look for it, it was in his Last Meals interview. But he talks about the feeling of just the world being so much more saturated when you have that first love. And how everything just... There's another layer suddenly. You discover so much, you experience so much more. There's just new depth. And that's the messaging I get out of Chainsaw Man, the Reze Arc. I ignore that second act. You know? Or really third act, but I ignore that second half of the movie. It doesn't... That's not what I think about. And it disappoints me that is what so many people think about, because there's so much more depth to this series than that. And it's like the curse of a shonen series. I've even seen like Frieren get degraded down to its fights, which, you know, Frieren is my favorite anime manga series. And it's just like, dude, if you're watching Frieren for the fights, get a heart. I'm really embarrassed about it, but I've only very recently become a lot more conscious about kind of emotion in media. And yeah, this is one of those. And it made me just want to feel. For the last month, I've been just kind of drowning myself in activities so that I didn't have to feel. I've been like, anytime I do feel something, I just kind of like write it down and then shove it in my notes app. Right? I've been doing like, it's like poetry. But it is poetry. I've literally written sonnets, but just to kind of separate myself, you know? And whenever I am like waking hours, I've just been playing video games, man. I I haven't had a vocal conversation with a friend in like a week and a half, I think. And that was a call. I haven't seen one of my friends in person and had a conversation in weeks since my graduation. And so that's why I have like super leaned into YouTube. You know, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's actually just stumbling upon me from this video, but I have a main channel and I've just been super leaning into it because it's good to have someone to talk to. And it keeps my mind occupied, especially because, you know, making a YouTube video, I feel a bit of a responsibility to be positive. You're putting out this energy into the world, and if you're going to put energy out into the world, I want it to be positive. Especially because I know, like, Minecraft content in particular gets a really strong younger audience. And I don't want to just spread negativity to the youngins. But I thought it was a panda for a second. After watching the Reze Arc, I remember just how much I want to feel in how good media is for that, you know? And so I watched it the other night. Last night I rewatched Look Back, which is also by Fujimoto, but it just, Reze Arc made me want to watch it. And I'm planning on doing a video about Look Back, because Look Back's even better. If it's your only takeaway from this, watch Look Back, and Reze Arc's about young love. And even now I'm like, man, I want to watch Look Back again, because it tears me apart, you know? No spoilers, but it's sad. But... And I'm done with the pit for now. Art makes you feel a way, you know? And there's a certain type of feel that you get from art that you can't get anywhere else. Because it's the unique mix of empathizing with the characters, you know, actually feeling the emotions that the creators are trying to make you feel, and also empathizing with the creators for what compelled them to make this. Like I said, I'm a film student. I've made films. I know what goes into making a film. And so I know, I have a greater understanding than the average person of techniques that get used. And I watch, a lot of the time whenever I watch film, I watch it for the awe factor. One of my favorites is Del Toro's Frankenstein, which is just such a wow factor for me. Because it's so beautiful, everything is so masterfully put together, the lighting especially. If you want to sell me on a film, just show me the lighting. And feeling, I don't watch many movies, but what the Reze Arc made me feel was I wanted, after seeing those montages at the beginning, I wanted to just feel that more. I already had most of my review planned out just from watching that. Because it made me want to just fall into films, you know? It made me want to feel those emotions again. And like I said, it's a super weird thing. A lot of feelings that you just don't normally get. But I've put together like a list of things I want to watch and rewatch. real quick, the rundown of that. We're gonna have Xanadu, which is just a really goofy movie. Turtles All the Way Down, which is my favorite movie based on my favorite book. Remarkably Bright Creatures, which is adapted from a book that I read. And it's just kind of wanting to feel the emotion, like I said. Because, I don't know. I watched Project Hail Mary earlier this year. In theaters, on opening night, actually. And it's the last movie I saw with my ex. We saw it twice. And that kind of restored a lot of my love for movies. But Chainsaw Man and then Look Back is what's made me just want to fall back in. There's, like I said, just something so beautiful about what you can convey. And again, specifically through montage. I love montage. Please, world, give me more montages. I've done a lot of montages. And you can do some amazing things. And it's really inspiring to see. But I didn't want to feel for a really long time. Because the only thing I was feeling was sad. But I can understand more melancholy. No? Melancholy? And I can understand just feeling good even though you feel bad. Because even though it's a bad situation, you can see things and what you can gather out of it, even if it makes you think of the things that have gone wrong in your life, they can also make you think of the reasons to keep going. And they can make you feel seen. And they can make your problems feel so much smaller than they actually are. Today's the day that I got my clothes back from my ex. It was kind of like the end of the whole chapter, in a way. And you know, there's still unfinished business. I still haven't talked about it to most people. But I'm feeling very empowered from knowing that what I'm going through isn't some grand fault of mine. And it's a normal human experience, you know? And so it's a movie that healed me. And it, like I said earlier, it reminded me of what I'm in this for. And what's out there. I really just can't convey how absolutely beautiful that first half was to me. And I don't know, maybe I end up talking a little bit more about just kind of, you know, my thoughts on the world and like those quiet moments. Because not to go all like white picket fence on you, but I kind of feel like that's what life's about. Just appreciating the little things, you know? But I don't have a whole lot else for you. Like I said, I want to do one about Look Back. Because Look Back was very vindicating. So was Chainsaw Man. And I mean vindicating in the sense, you know, like definition, you know, just feeling justified. And again, not feeling like there's something wrong with you. I don't think there's ever something wrong with you for just feeling. Especially not feeling sad. Because of circumstances around you. Who knows? After all, I'm just some high school graduate on YouTube. No, I'm not gonna go like. I'm not trying to make this video deep or anything. I just wanted to talk about the movie. Movies are special, and I do want to watch more movies now. You know. So I encourage you, like, look into more things that you love. Immerse yourself in the things you love. You know, I love the media of film. Like I said, I'm a filmmaker. I love lighting, which is another thing, dude. That Chainsaw Man movie. Okay, I know it's animation, but the way that the light was just so perfectly projected, and the care that was put into lighting those characters is better than 99% of Hollywood these days. And I know, right? I know how whiny and complaint it is that movies these days all look bad, but there is such a difference. I saw the Spider Noir teaser, like one of the Spider Noir teasers on Prime Video, right? That thing looks amazing. Like I saw the black and white teaser. That lighting, I know how much went into that, right? There was so much care into that. Project Hail Mary had amazing lighting. Frankenstein had amazing lighting. It wasn't all just flat and gray. You know what? Like, you know what? The last movie I saw in theaters. You know what that was? The Mandalorian Grogu. I'm not even a Star Wars fan. I just wanted to go with my friend. Right? That movie was lit terribly. I wouldn't trust that gaffer to light my birthday candles. Okay? But yeah, like, put yourself into more things that you love. I love my Minecraft world. There's a sense of... I want to make another, like, separate video. It's gonna be main channel video, honestly. But when you're in love, you get a sense of feeling at home. And I lost that. You know? I moved to Alabama 8 years ago. Right? Yeah. And it never felt like home. And I finally found home. But then home went away. It's now my Minecraft world's my home. Like, this is where I feel at home. I feel... It's not just... Like, obviously the support I get on videos helps me kind of feel it, but... This world has always been there to support me. Because it is... You know, it's mine. I'm in control. Everything is made to appeal to me. I don't have anything here that I strongly I have things I am not happy with. But, like, so many of these builds are calming to me to look at. This calms me so much. The house feels like a home to me. It's from a really old realm. And yeah, my old best friend was on that realm, but this is still a home to me. Same with this. This was also on one of those realms, but this clock tower is comforting to me because it's just so grand and it's such an accomplishment of mine. I have the Sniffer Sanctuary off there. I have Eco. This is a really old build that's always meant a lot to me, and I've just finished it. And it makes me so happy. This one's so serene, my bee farm. And just everything here is catered to me and to making me feel at ease. Like, obviously I have things that, like the clock tower, they're just kind of made to look cool. But everything here is kind of catered to uniquely me. Like this. You know, this is based on, like, hippie crystal stores, which I feel really at home in. Or, you know, this one, the most recent build to go up. I get cattails. I absolutely love cattails as a plant. I don't know. Chainsaw Man reminded me that I can feel home. Because it reminded me that home is a real feeling, and it's a valid feeling. And it's, again, that kind of thought that if other people are feeling it, and if other people are feeling it so often, and if it's such a common feeling, not to say like there's something wrong with you if you haven't been in a relationship, but it's common enough to where it's not a once in a lifetime thing. It can be, you know, if you find the right person, but it's not a feeling that you have to go without. And so it put me at a lot of ease, and it helped me feel very seen. And that's really what helps a movie. I don't know. This is going to be a long video, and I'm kind of running out of things to say. And so I do want to say, just kind of thanks for listening to me if you've been through the whole thing. I doubt anybody's gonna make it to the end, but you know, it still helps to just kind of talk. But thanks. I mean, you can like and subscribe, I guess. It just feels weird not to say it. I don't know. I hope to see you next time. Open up in the comments, you know? Just kind of, if you've seen the movie, tell me what you thought about it. Or if I said something that's kind of sticking in your brain, or that you got a problem with. I'm open to discussion. I'm also gonna link my Discord server in the comments. Just for some more discussion. I don't know. I like to talk about things. And this is something that I have a lot to say about. So, yeah, that's it. Peace.